Hello, everyone. It's very hard to be one of the last, but we will try to talk about the main points of the security issues in our session, about the concepts of information security and transparency, which are the cornerstones of strategic communication. So we believe the importance of reconsidering strategic communication in the context of information security and transparency in terms of protecting reputation, building trust, and achieving strategic goals will be conveyed. So for our session, we have several items for discussion. For example, today's challenges in balancing information security and transparency, the role of information security and transparency in strategic communication. Moreover, we will be talking about the information security and strategic communication in crisis. Communication strategies based on transparency and information security will also be covered during this session. And for that, let me please introduce the panelists. Here with us today, Mr. Oliver McTernan, Director and co-founder of Forward Thinking. He is the founder of the Helsinki Policy Forum, which conveys policymakers, parliamentarians, diplomats, and economists from the MENA Gulf region and Europe to analyze the challenges facing the region and to explore informed policy responses. Then we also have Nozima Muratova, Associate Professor, and at the same time the Vice Rector of the University of Journalism and Mass Communication of Uzbekistan. She is the Country Ambassador of the International Association for Media and Communication Research, a member of the National Association of Mass Media Researchers, and the Association of Women Scientists. Next is Javid Musaev, who worked as a diplomat in various embassies of Azerbaijan, including Brussels, Netherlands, Iran, and a representation of the Azerbaijan to the Council of Europe. Currently, he is the head of the communications policy sector of the presidential administration of the Republic of Azerbaijan. And the last speaker is Nicolas Bruneau. He's a communication advisor of the UN. Nicolas is a communication strategist with decades of experience. Nicolas has worked for intergovernmental agencies from the UN, World Bank, and EU, as well as non-profits, associations, and political groups. So due to the time constraints, I assume we should have around 6 minutes for each speaker, and then in the end, there might be some points for further clarifications or discussions. So now let me please give the floor to Mr. McTernan. Please, the floor is yours.
Good. Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you for remaining with us. There's an old saying, they keep the best wine to last, so
yes.
hopefully we will be able to prove that. There was a great 19th century English intellectual, John Henry Newman, and one of his famous insights, I think, when he said, to live is to change, to be perfect is to have changed many times. Those words underline the fact that change is essential to our human experience, and the ability to adapt, to transform our lives is essential to human development. But I fear what hasn't changed in the course of our human history is that ability, human ability, to deceive or be deceived. I think deception has been a constant throughout our human experience. And I recall 2,000 years ago, the Roman governor, Julius Caesar, when presented with alternative narratives, put that question, what is truth? And I think that's a very poignant question today, given Jerusalem being the site of that question originally. But what is truth? It's a question I think we have to ask ourselves every single day when we open our phone to look at social media, when we turn on the television, or when we pick up a newspaper to read. Within all of us are susceptible, I think, to, at best, be misinformed, at worst, to be disinformed. Disinformation is the means to achieve deception. And I think it's that awareness that should make us acutely aware of the importance of always being ready to ask the right questions. Now, another point, and I'm trying to go through these quickly because of our time limitations. What hasn't changed, as I mentioned at the beginning, what has changed is the means and the pace, the speed of communication. The means of communication and the speed by which we can communicate today has presented us, I think, with what we could call an information overload. And I think that fact makes it much more difficult for us to be able to discern what is truth and what, in today's jargon, is fake news. But again, when you're faced with an overload of information, it is so easy for that to hinder our ability to come to a right analysis. Very often, the analysis we frequently hear repeated in the media, I would say, is based on sound bites. This became very clear to me last night when I turned on CNN coverage of the release of the hostages from Gaza and the release of the Palestinian prisoners. What I could hear was so different from my own experience of having spent nearly 20 years going to Gaza and what I heard of Hamas, having spent 20 years engaging Hamas. I felt what we were getting is the soundbite analysis. And of course, that in a propaganda war is so useful to those who want to present an aspect of truth. The challenge we always are faced with is the aspect of truth. The single perception of what is happening becomes the complete truth or the full truth. So I think in addressing our issue on the need for strategic communication, it's very important, I think, to frame it with that awareness. Now, essentially, I would say everyone needs a strategy for communication, whether you're a big government or whether you're a small organization like Forward Thinking. We cannot exist in today's world with the rapid speed of change, with the information overload, without having a clarity of who we are, what we're trying to achieve, and how best to communicate that. So I think first and foremost, what is essential is to have a clear vision of what you are about and what you want to achieve. Once you have clarity about who you are and what's your purpose or aim as an organization or a government, I think then you're in a position to plan. And then the plan is how you implement or how you set about achieving that clarity of vision or idea. And the plan, I think, then needs a mechanism, an awareness of how you communicate it effectively to those who will be partners in achieving this purpose. So I think we have three clear steps: clear vision or idea, a clear plan of how you can implement it, and a clear vision of a strategy, rather, of how this can be communicated to others. And the strategy, I think, is of utmost importance when you are faced with either opposition or misunderstanding. Unless you have a clarity about that, I think you risk of being misunderstood or sidetracked. But one thing, and the reason I started with change as being an essential part of our human experience, if either of those stages there's a rigidity, there's a lack of openness to adapt, a lack of flexibility, then I fear our communication strategy is likely to fail. I think awareness of the rapid change in life requires also an inbuilt flexibility in our vision to review it and adapt if needs be, in our plan equally to renew it and adapt according to the challenges and opportunities we face, and then in the strategy, how to communicate it best, again in light of feedback we receive, whether it's being understood or not understood. Now, I would like to end by just addressing the particular points we were asked to cover in this session. One is the need in all of this to protect reputation. In my experience, there is only one way we protect our reputation, and that's by integrity. We have to check our facts. We have to be who we say we are, and we have to be sincere in what we set out to achieve. Second is the building of trust. And the only way we can build trust, be it with particular partners or a wider community that we wish to get buy-in from and be partners in the process of change, is to be totally transparent. We have to be who we say we are, and we have to be truly aiming to achieve what we claim we're trying to do, the change we're trying to effect.
Thank you.
Without that transparency, in my experience over the years, it's impossible to build the level of trust. Why should people go along with us? Why should they change if they cannot have confidence in the person trying to offer that direction? And the last issue I'll conclude with was the information security. The moment you talk of transparency, of course, the question arises, how do you protect certain things that are essential to your organization or to your government? In general, I would say it's an illusion to think we can keep secrets in this day and age. I work with my team in the understanding that nothing is a secret. Nothing we communicate is privy to us alone. But certain people, you presume, have access to that. So again, I stress that underlines the need for transparency. But you also, I think, we have a policy, what I would say, on need to know. Sometimes, if you're too transparent, you communicate too much information, there is always that risk that spoilers can use it. If you don't communicate to people the information they need to know in order to be efficient and to buy into what you're trying to achieve, I think the real risk is that people won't trust. And why should they? So it's getting that balance, I think, in discerning on a need-to-know base how much you communicate and how much it is essential to keep it confidential. And that usually, I think the judgment rests when what you share impacts on the life of others. So it's a fine judgment. It does require discernment, but I think it's essential if we're going to develop an effective communication strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Oliver, for sharing your points on this very important and sensitive topic. You're right that overload of information makes it harder to make decisions, and I believe the speed of information transfer and the technologic development makes it even harder to make those decisions. You mentioned about the plans, about the strategies. I hope that these type of events will help us to compare those plans and unite efforts to communicate better and more effectively. Thank you very much once again. Now I would like to give the floor to Professor Muratova. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have a presentation, and as you can see, the strategic communications in my presentation, I tried to underline the words of safety of people and society. At least any kind of strategic communication directly focused on safety of people and society. And we, as a media, I would like to say it as a former international journalist and media manager in media outlet and now researcher in media, I should say we still have such kind of challenges as a passive audience who are becoming the active participants in media environment. And quality of journalism nowadays, when we are talking about quality of journalism, we should say that it has still that principles which was important years ago. But in a new environment, terms, forms and content and engagement of audience is different. I don't mention here about the artificial intelligence because previous panelists said about it a lot. And in this kind of environment, we every time should think about how media should communicate and what kind of strategies they should have. And my speech will be about this kind of issue, more implemented and more applied for the media outlets. Here you can see that our strategic communication, Stratcom, has a kind of keywords: stability, security, and solidarity. And I should mention that this list, all of these participants, these keywords depend to all of these participants. Previous time we said about the communication from one side, and media now are not as agenda setters. And in this environment, we should mention that influencers, all of these participants are the part of strategic communications. And that's why I write here, everyone who has engaged in the media environment, it has a right to information, and they are the part of strategic communication. That's why I would like to underline two focuses. First is quality of journalism. Second is media literacy, media information literacy. The most important topics for strategic communication now is the kind of terms. You can see here information security, social media security, fake news, misinformation, disinformation. These words you have heard today a lot of. But in previous time, this terminology was the terminology of professional journalism. But now it depends to the media literacy. It's important for each of us. Even we are not journalists, even we are not communicate as in the public. Even we are just sitting and looking through our gadgets and gathering information, trying to communicate with Telegram, Instagram, and other kind of social media. These points, these words are very important for each of us. That's why I am thinking and I am saying about the two kind of topics: media literacy, media information literacy for everyone, and quality of journalism. What is the component of media information literacy for strategic communication? Why it is important and what we should do? First of all, it's adaptation and pilot the guidelines for all over the world, for all media, to promote media information literacy levels in case of user-generated content. If every media nowadays working with user-generated content, and the level of this content, it depends to the media information literacy or of that people society. Second one is developing media information literacy policies in media. It's important that we need to facilitate accurate coverage of the issues by developing of media information literacy. And next one is review and renew exciting national media policies and communication strategies. To what extent these policies include media information literacy. Working with just the media communicators or strategic communicators or media outlets, it's not enough. Every country should have a media policy which include the media information literacy components. Here I can show the quote of José Manuel Pérez Tornera. He is a director of UNESCO, chair for media information literacy for quality journalism. And he said, we are not just soloists in social concert. In order to achieve the harmony and balance in a media environment, we should participate together. Here I would like to underline one interesting fact. In Uzbekistan, more than 60% of population is young generation. And now when you are asking about the way you get the information, they are not saying any kind of name of or brand of media outlet. They are not saying about the BBC, CNN, or our national Kunuz, Daryous. They are saying that they get information from Telegram, from Instagram. And it's very important thing to think for media outlets, I think, because we are losing our names. Journalists nowadays cannot provide information through their media. They are providing this information by the social media, which is not recognized by the young generation. That's why I'm talking, I would like to say about the media components for strategic communications. It's 4 main points. First of all, it's media today should develop tools and policies to deal with fake news and counter with misinformation. And these tools should be open for everyone. Not just journalists or media outlets should use it. Everyone should have a knowledge and capacity to use the kind of tools. Second one is developing of anti-fake platforms and fact-checking platforms. It also should be generated and open for all of the participants of information processes. Next one is very important for me, and I am now working on it, how media outlets should develop or renew their policies inside of the media outlets that respond to the challenges of contemporary problems. We have a lot of problems, I mentioned it about these policies we should think about. when we are forming any kind of media, when we are working as journalists in this media, we should know what kind of media policy have that or that media organization. And next one is consolidation of all participants of the media environment in the information exchange process for the trust. Trust is the first and red word for today's speech, all of today's speech. And media don't react now to the events or situations. They interact, and in this interaction, participating of the audience is very important. That's why we should think about the strategic communications in case of media component. And how these two ideas, two keywords could be grow in equal level. Quality journalism and media literacy have the equivalent values and objectives. Both must respect people's autonomy and critical sense. Both pursue truth and verification of information. They are promote public conversation, dialogue. And they are also both defend pluralism and diversity without any kind of censorship. It means that when we are talking about the quality of journalism, we should mention that it is equal to the media literacy. And when we are talking about the media literacy, we should mention that it is equal to quality of journalism. But in this, today, we are thinking and trying to discuss the strategic communication. And it's important for all these two focuses as well.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Yes, media literacy is very important. It's important for both the consumers of the information and for those who communicate. I agree. As for Uzbekistan, you rightly mentioned, many young people use internet platforms. That's why we see the increase of internet media in Uzbekistan from 395 in 2016 to 745 now. So it's almost a 90% increase. Now, let me give the floor to Mr. Musaev. He will be also talking about this topic, but very specifically, he will be talking about the information security and strategic communication in crisis.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tudyakov, for the kind presentation. At the outset, I would like to join my previous speakers by thanking the organizers of this marvelous summit for the warm hospitality. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with you. Well, Mr. Tudyakov, before going through to your question, I carefully listened to our previous speakers. I took some notes, and I have a short briefs on the general matter, with your permission, of course. Now, we are living in a very changeable globe, and we have the notion of the strong state. And of course, the strong state has its own indicators. The classic indicators is to have a strong economy, to have a strong and very good welfare, social welfare, strong military and security potential. And nowadays, we have one indicator is a strategic communication. And what comes to our today's panel, we call it the dilemmas of strategic communication, information security and transparency. It's really a dilemma. Since from one hand, we have transparency, which is the integral part and the indispensable part of the strategic communication, but from another hand, we have the information security. And when we speak about the information security, it means information environment, just to secure the informational environment of your people first. Secondly, you have to provide the security of the informational base, hubs, and data from external threats. I mean, it's mostly related to technical side like cyber attack, viruses, etc. And third, we have to create genuine and fair informational ecosystem, being far from the disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. And what comes to your question, information security and strategic communication in crisis, the crises and these topics, in fact, differing case to case. I don't want to annoy the audience with the theological approach. I think always practical approach is prevail the theoretical one, and for the audience, I think it will also be interesting. Just I wanted to make one parallel, an example, the Karabakh war as a crisis, and how we overcome this crisis by strategic communication. By this example, I think it will be interesting to you. I will try to draw the strategic communication map of the Republic of Azerbaijan in that crisis. Just imagine it's the 27th of September 2020, just after the next provocation of Armenia, Azerbaijan started operation towards liberating its occupied territories. And we faced a very huge and big fake news, propaganda, and disinformation attack from Armenian side. Just imagine, from one hand, in Armenia pretend as a victim on abroad, but internally they disseminated information as if Azerbaijan is loses the fight in a battlefield. By the way, it's a good strategy as a psychological attack. This is first. Secondly, we acknowledged and we understood we faced with the problem of unnecessary flow of information in social media. So that was a challenge for us in that period. And in that crisis, the government took national security as a priority in a strategic communication. In this situation, government obliged to limit the speed of internet in order to create the stability and security of its own internet information database, hubs. And by the way, by doing this, we limit the threat from the social media. Okay, you have limited the speed of the internet, you have secured your information database, so another component of this communication is the transparency and openness. You should think about this as well. What we did, we open our door to the international media. Because in all crises, the information support is very important. We invited all foreign media to Azerbaijan. We create for them all possible opportunity to work as an independent foreign media to reflect the reality. They were familiar, and they were, by the way, the real witness how Armenia strikes the ballistic rockets to our military cities, which is located far from the battlefield. In that respect, the transparency and openness is very, very important. So every single day, even twice a day, the Ministry of Defense of Azerbaijan organized briefings. They update the foreign media, local media, and the people about the updates on operation. All ambassadors, all military attaches accredited in Azerbaijan were invited to that briefings. By the way, we should thankfully mention the name of the Republic of Turkey, how they support us for fighting against disinformation, misinformation, and fake news in that period. We have to mention the names of the journalists, foreign journalists, who almost sacrificed their life towards enshrining the truth to the international arena. And by saying this, of course, it will be better. It will be possible to mention social media participants who were in that period in Azerbaijan. He was in that period in Azerbaijan and enshrined the reality. Briefings, it's important. Working with foreign media is important, but one thing is very essential. You should have a strong political voice who can speak on behalf of the state. This voice in our scenario is the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. Just imagine, for 44 days, he gave personally interview to the more than 35 foreign media sources like BBC, CNN, Euronews, Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, ARD, France 24, TASS. I am not listing the media resources of the Turkey because the brotherly Turkey were with us from the very beginning of our war. TRT, TRT World, Global Media, Anadolu Agency. So what we had the foreign media in the battlefield, and we had the president as an official informational source. By the way, by saying the classic media, we have not be forgotten from the social media. The president, in the 44 days, tweeted 140 times. That is the state communication in a period of the crisis. So that was our formula of victory, to be transparent, timely, and proactive. I don't want to waste your very much valuable time. I think it's better to stop myself here before you will stop to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Musayev, for sharing the experience of Azerbaijan in strategic communication. I personally know myself very well how media is very active in Azerbaijan. They always try to involve experts from around the world, including from Uzbekistan, from the region, on different important points. Thank you once again. Now I would like to give the floor to Nicholas, but before giving the floor, I want to mention some facts. According to the World Fact Book, 66% of world population are actively using internet, and the average daily social media usage of internet users worldwide is 144 minutes. So daily social media usage. Moreover, according to Statista, at the same time, number of TV viewers worldwide from 2019 to 2028 is not expected to rise dramatically because it's around 5.2 billion, the statistics showed in 2019, and they are expecting only 5.7 billion in 2028. So I believe, Nicholas, you could develop further during your speech these points as we discussed earlier. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. I think in Turkey it's about 85% penetration for internet users according to the population. So I did want to start with a question. First, where, and if we can have a raise of hands, where did you get your online news this week? Was it directly from a news website or a news app? Or was it via social media? If we can have a raise of hands for those who got it directly from a news app. Of course, the journalists. And anyone else? Okay, so we have about maybe 20%. And how many of you got your news the past week via social media? And social media includes YouTube, includes WhatsApp, includes Telegram. So we have maybe 30%. So actually, if I can have the clicker, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is quite close to the international standards now. This is the latest survey from Reuters that was done with the YouGov that shows basically how social media is now access for news via social media is now 30% of news consumption. So it's really the driving force more and more for people to get their news. And actually, you'll notice that even higher than traditional news is search. So I think we haven't spoken very much about the impact and the importance of search, but when you are looking for something, what do? You'll probably go to Google or to social media to find out. TikTok is also now, with the growing short-form video, TikTok is becoming more and more prevalent for news as well. This is a global survey, once again, by Reuters, showing 18 to 24 age people using TikTok for their news. And the next slide is about Turkey, looking at the landscape for social media in Turkey. What do you think is the #1 social media channel for news in Turkey? If I can have any guesses here. So I don't see any guesses, but these are the rankings where you will see very clearly that YouTube and Instagram are the #1 sources for news in Turkey. And this is from a survey, once again, done this year by Reuters. So out of all the users that use social media, about half of them will get their news from YouTube, and about almost 40% from Instagram. So what does that mean, essentially? So essentially, what we're looking at is a situation where the traditional news is now second below the social media. And what that means is that more and more we are being influenced, not just by journalists, but even more so by personalities, by celebrities, and the people that we follow on social media, right? And I think that, you know, we have seen the impact during the pandemic, for example, of the fact that the people that we follow are sometimes the people that we get our information from. When we talked about the disinformation dozen, so 12 influencers who were responsible for about 65% of the disinformation about COVID. A very small group, but because of their impact and because of the fact that many people rely on social media for their news, it is becoming more and more dangerous. We can add to this the increasing polarization of society due to echo chambers. So, of course, we know that the social media algorithms are creating a situation where we are seeing more and more content from only the people that we agree with. And it makes it much more difficult to solve problems and have conversations. So what do? So I've put together top 5 proven steps which are essential for any communication strategy to be proactive in this situation. First, of course, is to plan ahead. I think many of us have a crisis communication plan, but we don't necessarily put it in practice. We don't necessarily have the procedure in place or everything already planned or the spokesperson already prepared and have the tests already in advance. So this is, of course, key in order to have the building blocks, to have the pre-approved messages so that your stakeholders right away will know, and that particularly if you work for a government institution, so that you have the basically the documents and the procedures already in place to quickly act. The second point is to collaborate internally. Now, we have seen, thanks to the pandemic, the need to collaborate and to work closely with experts, with scientists, to get the right information with various areas of the community, whether it's the political community, the scientific community, or the technical community. Now, one example of how you can develop an internal expertise is here WWF Germany was able to develop their expertise with their internal experts and then promoted, basically encouraged them to have a presence on social media, working with them collaboratively so that they would be spokesperson on different issues for their organization and allowed them to be much more politically involved on social media. Also, the European Commission brought together various experts to deal with the pandemic. So their response to the COVID outbreak was to bring together scientists, to bring together numerous people to have very quick debunking of disinformation. So the more you are proactive, the more you bring together these kinds of experts before a crisis, the more prepared you will be. The third is, and Oliver will agree with me on this, is to build trust. I think it's important to think like a journalist. I think many of us are now, more and more so, we are media organizations. As a ministry, as an organization, we are more and more producing content that needs to be checked. It needs to have the same rigorous standards as journalists. We need to make data available so that people can cross-check the data, and to basically work also with fact-checking organizations so that there is a collaborative relationship, and of course to work directly with the social media groups so that you are able to, when there is a crisis, you are able to get directly in contact with X or Meta or the different groups, because you have already developed those channels of communications with them. An example, actually, I skipped ahead a little bit, but the data journalism is growing, and so the more data you're able to showcase, the more transparent your organization will be, and the more it will be respected by a growing field of data journalists. The fourth point is to be digital first. So we need to think differently, because as we have seen, social media and the digital world is basically changing the way that we communicate and changing the way that people consume media. So we need to think digitally. We need to use social listening tools to be able to understand what is happening. If we do have various echo chambers, various groups speaking, what are they speaking about? How can we better understand? And then, how can that help us to shape conversations that respond to their concerns? So the World Bank that I used to work for uses Talkwalker, but there's many other tools, like they're noted here, Audience, Brandwatch, UScan, and that allow you to have a strong social listening strategy, which will then allow your organization to be more relevant on social media and to address the concerns that are out there. And that leads me to number 5, is to amplify. Once you know what your audience is concerned about, or what they're talking about, or the disinformation that is prevalent on social media, you're able to react. So you're able to, if you need to, act very quickly, to use promoted posts, A/B testing, to really find out what your audience is going to be interested in hearing about, but also to create videos. Like, for example, the World Health Organization are regularly doing videos to debunk myths and doing this in a proactive manner, or in a reactive manner. The UNICEF during the pandemic was engaging with influencers to collaboratively create videos that allowed them, because they already had the data from TalkWalker, from the social listening tools, they were able to react together with influencers and have very strong videos that allowed them to connect with the audiences. Because nowadays, you know, we don't want to connect on social media with an organization. We want to connect with people. And the influencers have that impact. They are able to connect directly with various audiences. Of course, it has to be the right influencer that speaks to your audience that you want to reach. I am not talking about speaking and getting a famous superstar or the Kardashians or something like this. As you can see in UNICEF, these were national influencers. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we've learned and we've seen in the talks today, so the talk with Anders Inset, where he spoke about the importance of using compassion and humanity to confront hybrid threats. Well, at the end of the day, maybe, you know, if we are able to use technology to be more compassionate, to be more human, then this is the result that hopefully we can achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. Ladies and gentlemen, we tried to discuss the information security, transparency, strategic communication, privacy, openness. Of course, these topics are very broad topics, and there are many debates about these issues. So have to balance them. From one side, we want transparency, but from the other side, of course, we need to talk about the privacy issues, some security issues. So I hope that these topics will be further discussed in the future events. So because of the time concerns, I want to thank our dear speakers for their contributions very much. And on behalf of our panel, I also want to thank the Directorate of Communication of the Presidency of Turkey and for organizing this event at such a high level and for hospitality. Thank you again.